What are we talking about today?
One big thing is that a lot of people are realizing that their history classes failed them completely.
Can we talk about that?
Yeah, like that's something that I've I've noticed that for a minute, because I researched a bunch of stuff and I was like, I really wanted to get to know things, and yet I'm still like dumbfounded at the things that I don't know. All of my history teachers in high school were PE teachers.
Yeah.
What? Why are they teaching history?
Yeah, and they didn't really seem too like concerned about it. Like they weren't into it. They were doing it because you read the information and then you don't have to think about it. You just spit it out.
Literally.
You know what I'm saying? You just vomit it to the kids, and then the kids eat the vomit, and then they vomit it on the test, and then they pass the class, and that's it. You know what I mean?
What was the top AP class that everyone took? AP
US history. Yeah.
And what did they teach us?
I didn't take
Nonsense. Okay, I took
You took A-Push?
I took A-Push. I got a 1 on the AP test.
Smart guy.
I took a 1. I got a 1.
Serious?
I got a 1. I did so terrible on the AP test because I didn't pay attention to the class. I finished with a D and my teacher gave me a B. Just gave it to me.
Cool.
He just gave it to me.
Awesome.
Because he was just like, whatever. He said he said this. I had a D and I was like, bro, I need help with my grade or whatever. He's like, will you do good on the AP test? I'm like, I promise. He gave me a B. I got a 1. I bombed that AP test so hard, but I never saw him again, so it was okay.
Cool.
And
finessed him.
Literally. That's so funny. But that AP test, bro, none of it was of any importance.
Yeah.
I can't even remember some of the things. It was just the something compact. It's why do I need to know this? A lot of it was just nonsense. And there's so much historical things that are so cool. Why can't we learn about the cool shit John F. Kennedy did? He looked like a savage.
He was cool.
I want to learn about him. I want to learn about, when they were developing new shit, all this new stuff.
Why did we never learn about the lynching of Mexicans in Texas? Did you see that? I sent you that.
Yeah, exactly. Stuff like that. Because they don't care. They
generally don't give a fuck.
They only showed what made white people look good. In any sense. White people would just look amazing. And history would just be in their form. Or the fact that, what did they teach us about George Washington's teeth?
They were wood.
They were wood. Do you know what they were?
What?
You don't?
I don't know.
They weren't wood. You know what they were?
What?
He would pull teeth out of his slave's mouth and use them.
Oh.
He made a grill out of his slave's teeth. Yeah. It was not wood. There's no such thing. The wood teeth never existed.
That was just they're whiting out their
They
sins.
just made it up for fun. And they taught it to kids. They taught it to little elementary school kids.
That's a fact.
And they would show us what it looked like. Here's the wood mouth one.
And Timmy Turner.
Yeah, on that shit, yeah.
That's interesting.
Stuff like that.
They're just what should the teeth be made out of as they're making the book? What do you think?
What do you think?
Chad? What do you think, Chad?
I don't know. Barbara? Let's, wood?
Sure.
Sure.
You said you made me a woman.
I couldn't think of a name. Barbara was really stuck in my mouth.
Also, that's disgusting, bro.
It's terrifying.
Yeah.
And also, because the people make the dumb argument where we didn't really learn much about slavery, honestly, besides the heroes and stuff. Yeah. But it's okay, but can we know about the songs they sang? I want to hear from the slaves. I don't want to hear about the slave owners.
They wrote what is it called? Slave songs, poetry. You know what I'm saying? That would be beautiful.
And it would be how they spoke to each other too.
Yeah.
It would be they would have coded messages. Yeah. And it was worship music too. So they would worship God. They would do all this stuff. It's beautiful. It's an amazing thing to learn about. I would want to learn about that more than George Washington or whatever. And the first time where I actually had a negative view of America was when I took California. California literature.
With Mr. O.
With O. And when I took that class with him, he was pretty blunt with us. He would be like, yeah, we killed them all, we killed all the natives, the natives died, all that stuff. And he would tell us about it, and he wouldn't hold anything back, you know what I mean? He would make it cool. He would make it pretty evident for the most part. And he would we learned about a lot of terrible things. We learned about that story where these people tried to come to California and they got stuck in the mountain. It was called the Donner Party.
Oh yeah,
the Donner Party, and they all ate each other.
Yep.
And they all ended up eating each other, and stories like that. Much more interesting, much more interesting than anything else, honestly. And yeah, I was like, okay, that's interesting, and that stuff more engaged me than anything else. And I remember some of the stuff that he taught us about, like the Native Americans, like, oh, they ate acorns, and then we made acorn pancakes, and I had the worst diarrhea of my life afterwards. It was so terrible. It was awful. But it's so funny. Here's another thing that I learned that I didn't even like think about, because people will be like, oh, what do you want to learn about slavery or whatever? Like, get over it. Slavery was a long time ago type shit. And they really want to make things old. Just like how every Martin Luther King picture is black and white. But they had color, you know? Like, they had color back then. They wouldn't show us. Why do they only put black and white pictures when it has something to do with slavery or it had something to do with...
Rosa Parks.
Stuff like that. Rosa Parks died in 2005.
Yeah.
What?
Yeah.
I'm like, what? How? Like, I was alive when she was alive. You know what I mean? Like, she was alive at the same time as me. Stuff like that boggles my mind. And I'm like, why did they make it seem so old?
They want you to forget. They wanted to
really do.
I've literally heard. Do you remember the history teacher from middle school? The big scary one.
Oh, yeah,
you know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
I remember him very clearly stating that slavery was 400 years ago. I remember him very clearly stating that slavery was 400 years ago. And he said, I think if I'm not mistaken, I could literally just lie. But if I'm not mistaken, I'm pretty sure he said it only lasted like 100 years or 150 years. I'm like, dude, that shit was like almost 100 years ago. Like it was like your parents' grandfather that could have been a slave.
Yeah.
Literally.
100%.
You know?
Yeah.
Odd.
Yeah.
Very, very weird how recent this shit is. But they really try to make it seem like, oh no, that shit was Shakespeare was writing when you know, slaves were around. It's like, no, bro, that's like 3 generations ago.
Literally.
You know?
It's very, very recent.
And I know nothing. They teach us nothing about Mexican heritage. They teach us nothing about just anything south of America or north of America.
Nada.
Nothing, bro. And it's like, you know, Texas Rangers, you know, Walker, Texas Ranger, you know, Texas Rangers, they were bounty hunters for Mexicans and like immigrants and like undocumented citizens, shit like that.
And they make cowboys seem so cool.
Yeah,
we learn about cowboys all the time.
Woody, they made it into kids, like kid shit.
Literally,
you feel me? I loved Woody,
the
bro.
sheriff.
Yeah. I shot the sheriff,
but I didn't shoot the deputy.
They make it seem like, as you're a kid, you're like, I want to be a cowboy.
Yeah.
Little Mexican kid. Little Mexican kid. I'm like, I want to be a cowboy.
I want to hunt the beaners right
literally,
now. But they make you want to hate yourself. It's self-hate.
No, literally. They embedded it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? Because like, as you grow older, you think about like John Wayne is like the cowboy man.
We have an airport named after
John Wayne.
We have an airport named after him, bro.
Yep. He's not real. He's not an actual cowboy. He's not real. You feel me? Like, why is he so important?
He was a racist.
No, literally.
He was a racist.
Yeah, and am I surprised?
We have an airport named after John Wayne. And that same John Wayne was like, he thought that black people could not like handle themselves. Like, he believed that they should be like slaves, just like because they can't handle themselves and stuff. And it's like, I don't know, man. Our history is so shit. Yo.
Fire.
That's fire. That's fire.
Art. Straight up art.
That actually scares me. The idea that the winners write history. That's always been terrifying to me. And it's more than real with America. Yeah. It's more than real. Like, people don't realize, like, black people couldn't read or write. The Negroes, they could not read, they could not write. It was not allowed. If they caught them doing it, they were killed. So it's like, how bad we know slavery is only from what they told us. It's only from what they told us. It gets worse. It gets worse with natives. They literally could not write things down. They were only verbal. Everything was word of mouth for them. So everything we know about like the rape and pillage and all the terrible things that happened to them with the missions and all this stuff, all of it is from those that were oppressing them. all we know from it. So all we have left are these missions that we're still allowed to go to, and we're told to go there for our projects. And we make little dollhouses. We make little dollhouses of our mission trips. They teach us,
oh, this is where the nuns were, and then this is where they ate, and then this is where we raped them, and then this is where we slaughtered the children.
Like, wait, why?
This is the skin of a 5-year-old. She was beautiful. Yeah. And we're like, wow. We're like, wow.
Great.
How'd you like the mission trip? Cool. I love seeing my dead ancestors. You know what I'm saying? It's fucked. It's weird, bro. Like, in hindsight, looking back on everything, it's very, like, psychotic. Mm-hmm. You know what I'm saying?
It's
like,
terrifying.
Very odd. They made us do all this shit, and we're just like, oh, because this is the right thing to do. This is what we do. I feel like the teachers didn't even care. Like, it's just the system, like the entire system. You know, it's so ingrained.
That's the scariest thing to be a part of, because it's always systems. Those are the biggest effects throughout history, are from these, like, you know, it's systemic. It's always like it's a huge system where there's oppression, and even like in every sense, like even biblically, it's looked down upon. Like if you look in the Bible, it says that it literally says like all systemic like oppression and stuff can be linked to Babylon. Like from the very earliest systemic like terrible place, the first terrible city. It was the biggest, most terrible city. All oppression that's even now can be linked back to Babylon. Like, that's how scary it is. And it's like that, to think that it's all like it's always been like, even if you don't believe in the Bible and stuff, the Bible's still like one of the earliest historical documents that we have that's like as truthful and most like easy to actually understand and stuff. It's living, yeah. And it's like it's one of the best ways to actually get our information. And to think that it's not a new idea, like it's not a new thing, but to think that it's a continuous thing that's always been happening is this oppression from these people who I guess are being run by something, you know what I mean? Like there's something bigger, and they only describe it as Satan, and they also describe it as like, because they say like the love of money is evil, you know what I mean? People got pissed at me because I said like money's evil, but they're like, no, actually, it's the love of money that's evil. What's the difference? So it's like it's the same thing.
Oh, I'm sorry, my bad. Bro, you know
I forgot to love my money. I forgot. I hate you.
I hate money.
I hate it.
I hate money.
Because like even if you don't believe in this like Satan idea, right? Because there still is like, because people don't really know what the word Satan means. I told you about it a minute ago, and it's very eye opening because
it is.
The Bible describes. There's people that go to church and who gossip. They're gossipers, like they're gossiping within the church. And Paul describes, I think he calls them Satan. He's like, you're being Satans right now, dude. Like chill. He's like, he basically calls them devils. And then the fact that he used that same word to describe them, I'm like, okay, what does it truly mean?
Like Satan.
Like, yeah, Satan. It means the opposer. That's all it means. Because it's also used in the Bible to talk about an angel, because there's guys who are going somewhere and then they get stopped by a holy angel, and they were opposing them. You know what I mean? Like they were stopping them from going.
Or like in their way.
They were in their way, exactly. Okay. So Satan, obviously, look, there is still like a devil caricature that's in the Bible that's very real. Like, but the fact that the word Satan, like someone who opposes, is like, it's a very important thing that we kind of miss in this society, because it's like, if you can really understand what that word means, then you can see clearly where the stuff in this world are like opposing the good in this world. Because everything that's anti-creation is Satan. Creation as in like, you know, the early like God creation, as in like what God wants essentially. And to think that all of it is just part of one big thing, like it's all one, you know, like that's a scary thing to think. Like what we're dealing with right now is something people dealt with in Babylon 2,000 plus years ago, 4,000 years ago. You know what I mean?
Did you see when Snoop Dogg was on the Lil Wayne podcast? Like Lil Wayne's podcast? They were talking about what's happening right now. And they're old heads. You know, Wayne's about to be 40, Snoop Dogg's old. Yeah. What Snoop Dogg said kind of just made sense to me. He said that his generation, so like NWA era generation in like the 90s and shit like that, the people who were speaking out against racism and doing what they can, you know, anti-system shit like that, they did the most that they could in their era. Yeah. You know what I'm saying? And now it's like another wave of anti-oppression, and we can take it as far as we can, but there's gonna be a limit where we can take it. Yeah. You get what I'm saying? Like there's gonna come a point where it's like we've taken it as far as we can. You know what I'm saying? Because like then it's like we have to wait for
the
shit
next
to act,
wave.
for the next wave,
For the
because
next wave.
then shit actually is gonna have to start changing and blah blah blah, and then more to think that fucked up shit is not gonna keep happening is unreal, because fucked up shit is gonna keep happening.
Yeah.
Cops are gonna keep killing people, and I'm not saying this because like, oh, let's not care. Like, I'm saying this because we should care.
Yeah.
You know, we should never stop caring, because like becoming numb to it would just be the worst thing. Like,
Yeah.
oh, I've literally heard people like, oh, George Floyd is only one man. I've heard people say that, and it's like,
well, no, that's what the entirety of that side believes. They're like he shouldn't be a martyr because look at his past. You know, he's imperfect.
He was a rapper. He was yeah. How good can a rapper be?
Also, he had sex. So.
Yeah. Oh, he had sex with a camera.
They really showed that. They really showed that. They're like, oh, he was a porn star, trying to demonize a man as if that belittles what that. It's not like the cops saw the man's past when he did that. He didn't see anything.
No.
He just saw a black man.
yep.
He saw him for what he was, so I'm gonna see him for what he saw him too. I'm
Yeah.
gonna say, why did you do that from what you knew? You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And that's literally because Jesus had a similar situation, right? Because that guy, there's a bunch of people saying that George Floyd shouldn't be a martyr, right? Jesus, it was in a situation where there's a bunch of people ready to stone a woman. They caught her in the middle of having sex, literally grabbed her. She was naked, and they were like, "This woman committed adultery." We're all ready to stone her, Jesus. What do you want us to do it or no? They're trying to put him in a position because he's against murder, but he's also
Against adultery.
adultery.
Yeah.
So they're trying to put him in a position. Jesus currently, what he was doing was writing on the ground with his finger, like stone. He was writing with stone, like with his finger, like.
Oh, shit.
It's terrifying. People don't read this shit in the Bible. I swear, it's so cool. He was just writing, just.
Like his finger's like a drill.
Exactly. That's what he was doing. And then he says to them, they're all ready with their stones in hand. And he said, those of you without sin, cast the first stone. And what do? Exactly what you just did. They leave.
That's so hard.
From oldest to
That's
youngest.
so hard.
From oldest to youngest. Because the oldest people knew, I've sinned. You know, the old people,
Like,
as in they've sinned so many times that they're like,
already
okay,
know.
I know.
Yeah.
The kids, maybe they'll have to think about it. You know, it'll take them a little bit of some time to think about it, but they still did. They know that they have sinned. So from oldest to youngest, everyone leaves. And that's the story. It's like, who are you to judge, honestly?
Yeah.
In the ultimate scheme of things, who are you to judge? And yet, the most judgy people just tend to be those who believe in this man. You know what I mean? Like, and those people did believe in Jesus when they went to him and were like, what do you want us to do, huh? Like, you want us to kill this woman and stuff?
It's like people create this certain kind of stigma, or they hold themselves to a certain type of pedestal because they're like, well, I believe in Jesus.
Self-righteousness.
There you
is what
go.
it's called.
That's
they
what we're
believe in
going for.
self-righteousness. They think their works are so powerful. Like, believing in Jesus and they're pretending like they're perfect is somehow equal to their perfection. But it's not. Their perfection is found in the man that died for you. You know what I mean? Like, so you are not perfect, and no one that's around you is perfect either. You are an equal.
I don't know, bro. I'm just like confused, to be honest. I just need like a sign, you know? I just need like a very obvious sign, and I think it'll just like change everything. Nah, but that's like kind of ambiguous, you feel me? Because that shit's just like everywhere. I need something like spell it out type shit, you feel me? If I get that, then I for sure like shit would change, you know?
It's only very recent where God and Christ and stuff has kind of just been removed from school. Obviously, it's not allowed in school because of the prayer stuff that happened like 50, 60, 70 years ago, where they took out praying in school. They took it out. They said that, okay, we're not praying in school anymore. But it used to be a pretty open thing. Like, God was pretty much part of school. Like, it was just like a normal thing.
It's on the dollar bills, though.
Yeah, you know, it's
On every
everywhere.
coin.
It's kind of like our culture. But people kind of ignore it now, and like we kind of like pretend like it was none. But you can definitely point out all the negative stuff in Christianity. We can do it. We're really good at it.
Yes.
We see all of the terrible things, but like, don't throw away the whole book. You know what I mean? Like, don't throw away the whole thing. It's so important to our history. It's important to everything. Like, it really does show a scheme of everything. And like, yeah, even with that story with the cast the first stone and the self-righteousness idea.
I love that. That's an amazing idea.
Yeah, because the Bible even says like our good deeds are like filthy rags, because essentially they mean nothing. Yesterday we were talking about doing merch. You know what I mean?
Absolutely.
And we wanted to do something right. We wanted to give to Goodwill.
Yeah.
But at first we were like, okay, so we're gonna go to Goodwill, we're gonna buy some shirts, put something on it, right? And then we're gonna give it back to Goodwill. And I was just like, wait, we wouldn't really do anything if we did that. You know what I mean?
We wouldn't really be giving
We wouldn't have done anything, right? So we were like, okay, then what would we actually do? Okay, maybe we'll buy a bunch of shirts off the internet for very cheap.
In bulk.
And then we would put our names on it and stuff, and it would be like, well, those would come from China, where a bunch of sweatshop kids would have to make them. You know, it's like, think about every good deed you could possibly do. It's like, shoot, like,
there's always gonna be some bad to it.
yeah, something's gotta be like where's that money from? You know what I mean? It's like some blood diamond type, you know, stuff. It's like, oh, I want to buy a diamond ring for my wife or something. It's like, oh, you want to know where those diamonds came from? Type stuff. You know what I mean? It's like, it's scary. Like, it's always all the good deeds you could possibly do.
It's like, oh, I want to take my mom out to dinner and get a big old steak. You know what I'm saying? Like,
where's that steak from?
You know the misery that cow went through for that steak. You know, like the best thing that we could ever do will never outshine anything that Jesus did.
Yeah.
And you can't even get close.
Yeah, it's really not possible. Because he's the only one that could redeem. Like, he could redeem all negatives. He heals the blind, like, figuratively and literally. He brings light to situations. And like, people kind of undermined the idea of Jesus, regardless if they believe in the miracles he did or whatever, but they still believe in, you know, the history books that they get in their classes. I'm not saying anything, but still,
You want to believe.
believe whatever, if it's up to you. But
I ain't never heard no one pray to George Washington. I'm gonna tell you that right now. I never. Oh, George Washington, because George Washington.
Maybe you never know.
Yo, bitch, if you're doing that.
Oh, they do kind of worship them, or their father, or what's it called? The
Mount Rushmore.
Yeah, that type. The figures. What's it called? The American founders. The founders of
founding fathers.
Our founding fathers.
Our founding fathers.
Who even is that?
I don't fucking know. They're all slave owners. First of all, they're all slave owners. All of them.
So it's like, if they all have these negative pasts, how dare they not understand George Floyd having a negative past? It's like, what? He did drugs.
That's a fact. Yeah.
Right? Like, how could they not understand that?
Yeah.
It's odd. It's an anomaly. Just like how Dave Chappelle said, like, how dare cops not understand why we all came out for George Floyd when they would all come out if their cops got killed? Because there was that situation where a couple cops got killed, and it's always the black people that are going into the military, and they feel like they're fighting like terror. They're fighting terror when they're fighting these cops. So it's like, there's so many signs, there's so many like places where it just shines that, like, because the light will always shine. I don't know, it's like a whole, it makes me feel like whole that people can actually like talk about this stuff, and it's like not an awkward conversation to have. Because I had these conversations maybe like 2 or 3 years ago for the first time about, like, you know, oppression and all this stuff. People were educating me. It was people at my church that were educating me on this stuff, because those people know what they're talking about. Like, those people, they're embedded in their blackness. Like, they've been surrounded by those people, you know what I mean? So they were able to educate me on that. I had some dumb responses a couple times, you know, just because I felt like I knew more. Just because I've been on the internet, and the only stuff that I knew was stuff that these internet white kids might tell me. You know what I mean? Like, that's all I really knew.
Yeah.
And I felt like I would be doing too much if I was to even think like, oh, like, you know, oh, it kind of sucks that I have to smile at random tall white people, even though they're tall, and I feel like they might be scared of me for some reason.
Yeah.
Like, I naturally just had that. Like, that was just the thing that I had. And I thought it was normal. I thought it was like, that's okay. Like, I could just be like that. And I thought it was normal that in elementary school, just because I was like the one black kid, if someone was to date me, it would be weird because I'm black. You know what I mean? Yeah. What? Like, that's unheard of. It's like, it's odd. It's like an anomaly. It's like weird. Yeah. It was a weird thing, but I just dealt with it because I thought it was normal. I thought it was like, oh, that makes sense. To me, to little me, I'm like, oh, people would stay away from me because I'm black? That makes sense. There was an instance where one of our friends, our Asian friend, a Korean friend,
Yeah.
he had another friend group because I was friends with him for a minute, like since like 4th grade maybe,
Oh, okay.
and he made friends with all the other like Asian kids at the school because our school was predominantly Asian as an elementary school.
Yeah.
And there was a time where they would all hang out by that one road that was next to the grass. You know where the grass is?
Yes, sir.
There's that
Yeah,
road.
yeah.
They would all go over there. And I was like, they were like the cool kids somehow.
Yeah.
Like they were all the Asian kids would go there. And I remember specifically, I went over there to see him because he was my friend.
What's up?
And I went over there, and they literally asked me, "What are you doing here?" Based on what? Like everyone was okay to be there, and they understood in that early moment. They understood segregation. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Like there was an
true.
immediate segregation there because they were like, "You don't belong here."
Yeah.
And I don't know how it worked. I don't know how it just snapped into their brains that they had to be together, and they started like sectioning themselves off, and it was okay for them to do that. Yeah, it's interesting to see how it's such an open conversation now, and I'm like walking outside now, and I'm like, is this what it feels like?
I feel you.
Like
We
feel
were
almost
talking about this.
respected. Yeah, I felt respected for once. I was like, I could walk outside and like on some like I felt like a stranger could just look at me and go, "Hey man, I'm here for you.
I'm on your side,
I'm on
man. Hey, they're all bad, man, but I'm one of the good ones.
Of the good ones.
I'm one
We
of the
talked
good
about that.
I told you.
The cops. It's almost like there's gonna be cops who are gonna be like, "Hey, don't worry,
Hey,
I'm one of the
I'm
good
good.
ones," because that's what they're doing
I'm
on
good.
social media too. They're
Bullshit.
like, "Don't worry, I'm one."
Hey,
I would never
hey
be like
guys.
one of those cops.
Hey guys, look, I understand
Yeah.
your pain.
And that used to be our thing. Black
Yeah.
people would do that. Like I would do that. I thought like I had to make it known that I wasn't like one of those black people that were only here for them. They only knew them in their brains.
Yeah.
But I had to somehow be like, yo, like that little fantasy that you have that your parents told you that black people are dangerous. Yeah, I'm not one of those people. As
Yeah.
if like it was my fault or like I'm a part of it. And I felt like
Yeah.
black guilt almost.
It's kind of like they only make it seem like black people are the only ones that do bad things. It's like in every race, every ethnicity, and every type of person, everybody does bad things. You know what I'm saying? There are Mexicans who do crime. There are all types of South Americans that do crime. There's a lot of white people that do crimes. There's a lot of black people that do crimes. There's a lot of Asians that do crimes. There's a lot of I don't want to leave anyone out. Any Alaskans that do crime. There's a lot of French people that do crime. It's like crime is something across the board that everyone does, but it seems like with black people especially, and a lot of people of color, that it's just kind of like you're looked, especially as a young male, we're kind of expected criminals.
You're nothing but your crime.
Exactly.
And that's why they put cops in predominantly poorer schools and schools, because there's this literally they're just like, oh, you're in school, okay, I'm gonna take you to jail. Like it's literally they would just move them to jail. There's all this talk about in Los Angeles specifically, a lot of kids just straight from school to jail. Like it's just a dump. It's literally just dumping
It's like
kids
the
into
same
jail. And it's like, why isn't there more work put into that? Why are we not replacing those cops with social workers to help the kids in their situations?
Yeah.
Because obviously they need help. It's not like they're like, it's about black o'clock, I need to go to jail. You know, it's not like they look at their hands and like, oh, I'm darker skinned, I know where I need to go.
Yeah.
It's like, no, there's something wrong with those kids. They are normal kids.
Because
And
there's no understanding, bro.
and even in a modern sense, this might be the most radical to some people. This might affect a lot of people.
Tell me.
This is something that's been bugging me for a long time, because like